Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast with your host, Sana. Today, we are diving deep into the heart of what makes life truly fulfilling healthy relationships. And our guest, Kristal DeSantis, is no ordinary relationship expert. Listeners, she's a licensed marriage and family therapist, trauma specialist, and author of Strong, a relationship field guide for the modern man. With a unique focus on first responder couples, men's mental health, and trauma informed care, Crystal is on a mission to redefine how we connect with ourselves and with others. Born into a multiracial, bicultural family, Crystal has spent her life studying love, connection, and what it takes to thrive in a modern relationship. Her strong STRONG model of relational therapy is a game changer for couples looking to build healthier, more resilient connections. Also, she's been featured in Newsweek, HuffPost, and Time. So, she's got the insights to back it up. If you have ever wondered how healthy relationships can boost not just your personal happiness, but also your mental well being and even your community, this is the conversation for you. So grab a quick cup of tea or coffee, settle in, and get ready for some serious relationship wisdom with our guest, Kristal DeSantis. Kristal, welcome to the show, and it is an absolute honor to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Lovely. Kristal, the strong model, it's such a compelling name. So, would you break down it for us, and what inspired you to create this framework for modern relationships?
Sure, absolutely. So, one thing I noticed in my work with couples is, the question about what a healthy relationship is, right? Um, there is a lot of information on social media. Of course, people talk to their families, they talk to their friends, but it seemed like the big question was, how do we know if we have a healthy relationship? And if we don't have a healthy relationship, where do we even start to create one? And so that's really where I wanted to look at the research, and look at all of the studies that were out there, as well as combined with my own experiences of working with couples, and really break things down into a very simple model that people could follow as kind of like a blueprint. Of course, every relationship is unique, every relationship is special. But I kind of wanted to speak to the idea that strong is healthy. So if you're wondering what is a healthy relationship, you can look back at this template of strong. And if your relationship is strong, then it's healthy. So that's why I do it like that to make it easy for people.
It's inspiring. It's great, and it's more and more becoming relevant in today's context where there's so many different kinds of relationships. So
Absolutely.
it's really, really inspiring, Crystal. So you focus a lot on men's mental health and the unique challenges men face in relationships, which I think is one of the most overlooked aspect in specifically relationships or family dynamics. We talk about women, the issues, the day-to-day challenges faced by us. But yeah, I also admit we often overlook men's mental health. So, what are some common misconceptions people have about men's emotional needs?
Well, I think the biggest one that I often heard, and I think a lot of men have heard, is the idea that for some reason men don't need relationships in order to be healthy, right? There's sometimes the stereotype or the image of the man who is alone and he's kind of a lone wolf, and he doesn't have friends, he doesn't really interact with his family, or maybe he's lost his family somehow, and it's kind of elevated like this is a hero kind of man, a man who's alone. But again, at the end of the day, men are human. We are all people. And in order to have a healthy life, having healthy relationships is such a crucial part of that. And for men specifically, because I think, again, for women, the message from our societies is more encouraging of women to have relationships, right? So, like, if a woman is alone and she's like, I don't need anybody, sometimes the perception is like, okay, something is wrong with her. Whereas if with a man, they're like, oh, yeah, that's a real man, right? And unfortunately, it's just not the truth. Is men need relationships just as much as anyone else. Men need friendships, men need brotherhood, men need families, men need connections. And so that's part of what I wanted to highlight is, at the end of the day, we are all human. And in order to have our fullest, healthiest lives, we all need healthy relationships in order to help us get there.
True, true. And if I would like to add to this, I think there's a lot of conditioning done in our societies and, families by parents, with regards to boys that, boys don't cry. Why are you crying? Are you a girl? You need to be strong, manly, and, always push back all emotions and suppress them. So I think that's also one of the biggest misconception when it comes to men's mental health, and that is too relevant among the that group, your friends, your guy friends, because you kind of
Mhm.
be ashamed to expose that vulnerable side of yours.
Exactly. Absolutely. Um, And that's again where just that's part of why I wrote my book and I called it Strong. And this is why my model is called Strong is that, true strength is really about resilience. Um, it's not the idea of shutting yourself off from your emotions or not asking other people for help. That's kind of a very limited view of what strength is.
Mm.
And so that's really also what I wanted to speak to is that, a strong man has the skills to create healthy relationships and to keep other people safe around him in his relationships, but also to understand what emotional safety feels like for himself. And to be able to seek it out and co-create it with his friends, with his, partner, with family members, because that's really what true strength is. It's more capacity, not less.
Mm. Right, that's right. Lovely, lovely, Crystal. So moving on, trauma and attachment styles, they often play a big role in how we connect with others. So, how can couples begin to identify and address these dynamics in their relationships?
You know, Often where I see conflict, and communication issues,
Mm.
uh, kind of are the things that cover up deeper traumas or attachment wounds. And so, as a couples therapist, this is something that when people come to seek out my services, often, they will start with, we are having a lot of conflict or we are having trouble communicating. And so that is usually kind of the trailhead that I use to explore deeper attachment and trauma injuries or, things that have impacted you. So when we talk about attachment from an attachment-based perspective, what we're talking about is how you form relational bonds. And that template was given to you from your family of origin. So, the way your mother and your father responded to you when you were young, were they present for you when you were in pain? Were they able to give you emotional support when you needed it? Or were they distant? Were they chaotic? Were they abusive? Were they critical? And all of those things are then going to inform what you are expecting in your adult relationship. And so that's really then what I saw with, people having difficulty in their adult relationships, forming healthy attachments when they didn't have a positive template from their own family of origin. And then with trauma, again, people experience trauma in all kinds of different ways. But one of the big things that informs my work with trauma is
Mm.
trauma teaches your brain that the world and other people are not safe. So rather than looking for connection for other people, you start to protect yourself from other people. And so, when it comes to in a relationship, that's often where it can lead to conflict because your brain is trying to protect you from maybe what it perceives as a person who is criticizing you or some source of pain, that it's then keeping you kind of stuck in protection mode rather than allowing you to switch to connection mode, which is maybe what you want. So that's really a lot of the work when it comes to conflict and communication skills. Sometimes it's about learning, new ways to talk to each other, but sometimes it's about the deeper feeling of, I'm worried this person is going to leave me. I'm worried this person is going to hurt me. I'm worried I'm not good enough for them, or whatever, some underlying attachment injury or past trauma that's affecting how you are showing up in your current relationship. So kind of separating those things out is really important.
Right, right. So first responder couples, they face a different set of, unique pressures. What lessons from working with them can we apply to our own relationships under stress?
Yeah, I think some of the lessons that from first responder couples I offer to everybody is really being able to turn work off when you leave work.
Mm,
Because that is something that I noticed in specifically in working with first responder couples, right? Is
mm,
if somebody's a first responder, they are responding to when people are in danger and crisis. They're often running into some really traumatic experiences, right? So being able to turn that off when you come home so you can be present with your family rather than constantly being on alert, being on hypervigilance of, what's that sound? Where am I supposed to be looking? Where's the nearest exit? And kind of being in that state. For first responders can be very specific to environmental safety or, gauging other people. But when it comes to, a couple that maybe is working other corporate regular jobs, the ability to turn work off
mm.
also in this modern world is so important so that you don't allow the work stress or world stress to impact your home and your relationship life. And that is something that, again, leads to a healthy mind, so that you're not constantly stressed all the time. And really having those self regulation and stress management skills is crucial in being able to be present and connected with your partner and your children in your home.
Wow, interesting. So in talking about your book, as you mentioned in the beginning part of the conversation, you explore navigating modern relationships with confidence. So, what one piece of advice you would give to someone struggling with today's fast-paced and not to just, put it more bluntly, but random dating culture?
Yeah. And it is really tough. The world is really fast paced and dating can feel pretty discouraging for some people. And I've heard that a lot. But something I really want to encourage everybody is, start with having a healthy relationship with yourself. You
Mhm.
can use the model of the strong relationship by starting to create that with yourself. So, I can explain the S. S stands for safety. So, do you have a safe relationship with yourself? Do you like yourself? Are you kind to yourself? Do you have self awareness? Do you have skills for stability so that you can keep yourself safe in the world? That's really crucial so that you feel like you have your own back. So maybe you're not rushing into a relationship so that somebody else can take care of you or somebody else can protect you, but you really have those skills that you can keep yourself safe in the world. That's really important. And the T is for trust. And again, how do you know how you can, if you can trust a partner, if they are trustworthy? Well, first, you have to be able to trust yourself to make good decisions about
Mm.
who to love, who to pick. So again, you can use that and develop your own sense of trust that, you know, paying attention to your gut, getting really in tune with yourself so that you feel, again, I can keep myself safe and I can trust myself to make good choices. Um, And then the R is respect. So again, I talk about it in the context of respecting your partner in a relationship, respecting their boundaries, but also for yourself. Again, if you're single and you're just working on you, start with looking at, what are my core values? What are my boundaries? How do I like to be respected? Are there any boundaries that I need to hold better for myself so I can look at myself with more respect? Sometimes we make decisions that we're not proud of, and that can cause problems in relationships later on, right? And so, again, just being able to act in a way that you respect yourself, hold your own boundaries. These are kind of the foundations of a healthy relationship with a partner, but also with yourself, having safety, trust, and respect. And then, the ONG part of the model, the book, and also what you could work on individually is openness, right? So let's say maybe you're dating, but you're kind of bored, you're kind of seeing the same people and you're not really finding the match. Well, what would it be like to be a little bit more open?
Hmm.
Maybe you have some superficial things that you could be open about changing, or maybe looking at a different district or something, being a little bit more open. And then N is for nurturing yourself, right? So if there's something that you've been like, gosh, once I get a partner, I will blank. Once I get a partner, I will, go to that restaurant, or once I get a partner, I'll go watch that movie or plan that trip. Well, nurturing yourself might mean, you know what? I will go take myself to that restaurant and enjoy that experience. Or if I want to go see that movie, maybe I can invite a friend, right? Nurturing your friendships, nurturing yourself, not waiting for a partner to do that for you. And then same thing with the G is generosity, which is, are you treating yourself well? Do you have self-care? Are you, again, doing the things that are making you healthy in your mind, in your body, in your spirit, in your community? So all of these things, again, I understand having a partner, finding a partner is a very big life goal for a lot of people. And it's really impactful. It's very important, for a lot of people to find that person. But sometimes dating can feel really discouraging when you don't feel like you're making any progress outside. But you can always make progress inside so that you can have a strong relationship with yourself, so that when you do find that partner, you can create a strong relationship together.
Right. Wow. Great explanation, Crystal. So, um, on the flip side, modern relationships, they often emphasize independence and self growth. How do we balance this with the interdependence that healthy relationships require? Like we often talk about partnership, how partners in crime, where we share everything, with our significant other. So, is it possible to have both at the same time?
Absolutely. It's actually really important to have room for um, independence in a healthy relationship. So in my book, I talk about the difference between independence, codependence, and interdependence. So,
Oh.
when you're single, you're independent. You don't have to think about anybody else when you make your choices. You can just, do what's right for you. But then the opposite of that, being codependent, when if you get into a relationship and then let's say you become the kind of person who can't make a decision without your partner and you can't do anything on your own, that's also really unhealthy, right? And so having this middle ground of interdependence where you still have a sense of self, you still have, the freedom and autonomy to make decisions, but you also very much are aware that your decisions impact your partner. They have repercussions and consequences, and also benefits for the couple. And recognizing that you are now part of a partnership is really important. But you're not disappearing into your partnership. You haven't like gotten sucked into a what I call like a couple blob, where you and your partner just become one person, and that's also not healthy. So having that kind of balance in the middle is so crucial. The knowing where you end and where your partner begins, and then how you work together as a couple is a really important skill for a healthy relationship.
True. True. Also, you advocate for trauma informed approaches to relationships. But Isn't there a risk of overanalyzing our connections sometimes? How do we keep relationships authentic while also addressing deeper issues?
Yeah. I think this is where it's so important to recognize that, healing and change happens while life is going on, right? We don't get to pause our lives while we work on ourselves. And so that's something that I always just want to encourage people is, healing takes time and life doesn't stop. So, any little changes you can make, any little insights you can make, any little steps towards progress that you can make is already a win, right? Even acknowledging that, gosh, maybe I've been holding this trauma for a long time. I've never talked about it. Even taking that first step to talk about it is a huge improvement, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean, again, that all right, now we're going to not do anything for the next 3 years and just sit in a room and just talk about my trauma. Again, that would also, I mean, that's not realistic. But healing in context is so important. And so I think that's something I'd always want to highlight in the work that I do with couples is, come in, talk about it, but then go practice in real life, right? All the skills that we talked about in session or, the insights that you had, go then think about it, integrate it. And this is kind of where, we talk about just sit with it. Sit with it. Notice how it impacts you. Notice how you're noticing the world differently, and continue to go live your best life and go have your healthy, happy relationships as you're still working on it. We can do both.
Mm, great. Lovely, lovely, Crystal. And before we wrap up this enlightening and eye opening conversation, you have traveled between cultures and studied love in diverse contexts. Uh, while, if I talk about my culture, my country, here, uh, our roots, our family dynamics are like you have to, uh, you know, take everyone with you, keep everything well along, not just the individualistic focus. Uh, may be different for some other cultures or races. So, what universal truths about relationships have you discovered, and what cultural nuances stand out for you?
Ooh, that's a very big question. Gosh, there are lots of differences between cultures, and it is difficult to kind of have a universal truth. Um, but when you said that, one thing came up for me that I think was true regardless of culture, is kindness translates throughout cultures, safety in relationships translates throughout cultures. Um, while respect for different rules and different hierarchies and family structures might be different. The one-on-one experience of I feel respected, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel like I matter. These are the things that is, I think I've seen that in every culture, right? And people that even maybe don't share the same language, they can have a moment of like, you know what? I feel seen. Like we just shared a laugh together. I don't exactly know what the joke is, but I know that we're both in this moment enjoying moment of pleasure and having fun. And this is just a very human experience that, these are the little tiny moments that make us all feel connected in our common humanity, which, at the end of the day, being reminded that we are all humans, we are all sharing this experience of being in the world. And, we all have people we love. We all have, pain of missing people that we love. We all have the pain too of being hurt or hurting people that we love and we don't know how to do it or we don't know how to share it. So I think just reminding that it doesn't matter what culture we're in, we all kind of share this desire to be loved, and to be close to those who we care about. Um, yeah.
Lovely, lovely. That's a great answer. This is so. Before we wrap, if our listeners they want to explore more about strong framework and also about the work you are doing to help us navigate through this, through the complexities of healthy modern relationships, and also they wish to connect with you, how they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find my book. It's called Strong, a relationship field guide for the modern man, but I encourage anybody to read it. Read it with your partners, read it on your own. You can find it on Amazon, or it's also on Audible if you have, Audible. Um, Also, I am on Instagram at ATX Therapist, and my website is just strong.love. So you can find me on all of those places.
Right. We'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes for our listeners. And Kristal, thank you so much for such an eye opening and such an enlightening conversation. And, you helped us navigate through uh, the complexities, as I told. Thank you once again for coming on the show and sharing your insights, your experiences with all of us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing the work of sharing strong relationships with your audience. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Crystal. And listeners, thank you to all of you for tuning in to the Mindful Living podcast. If today's discussion sparked something in you, be sure to check out Crystal's work and her strong framework. You can refer the show notes along with this episode on your favorite podcast platform. And if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, let us know how we are doing, and share it with someone who could use a little help from this conversation about relationships. And also, do not forget us to follow on Instagram at the rate mindfulliving.bizblend. Until next time, remember to stay curious, stay connected with yourself and your loved ones, and as always, stay mindful. Thank you.